Hi, I'm Angie, and you're watching Living in Today. So today I have a couple of things I need to do, but the first one is get some bread made. I'm gonna be using a recipe that I learned from my mom, Eileen. I don't know where she got the recipe from. I don't know. It's just what I use. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. It makes 2 loaves in 9-inch pans. Super easy. This one, I like the way the bread comes out. You roll it instead of just forming it and letting itself rise. I like the texture of the inside of the bread when I do a tight roll on it, but we'll get into that as I progress through this video on how to make bread. Okay, so here are the ingredients that you'll need to make this white basic bread. So I have 3 tablespoons of butter, half a cup of milk. I have water that is going down in temperature. I need it to get to 110 degrees approximately. I have my sugar, yeast, salt, vegetable oil, flour, and then of course my sifter. Let me turn this around. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is heat our milk and sugar and butter up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I have half a cup of milk, 3 tablespoons of butter, and 3 tablespoons of sugar. So I'm going to bring this to, I just want to heat it up. I don't want it to boil. So I'm going to continue to stir this. As soon as I get it warm, I'm going to turn off the heat, okay? I don't want to scorch my milk. I know some people use like 1% or a low-fat milk. I've tried using low-fat milk and it just, I don't know, I can tell the difference in the bread. I can tell the difference in the way that the bread rises, and like the density of the bread and how crumbly it is. So for those reasons, I choose to use a whole milk. When I can afford it, I use organic milk. But as you all know, right now in 2021, prices are insane. So, yeah, I don't insist on using all organic products, even though I want to, even though it's healthier for you. If you ain't got the money, well, you just kind of roll with the punches and do the best you can. Okay, so this is nice and hot. I'm just going to leave it here, take it off of the stove. And now we're going to go move into our dry ingredients. Okay, so we need to put in our yeast. So it's 5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. I just buy it in larger containers because I make bread about every 2 weeks, maybe every week and a half, depending on what we're doing. So 5 teaspoons to 1.5 cups of warm milk that's about 110 degrees. I'm going to put them down here. Alright, so I'm going to just let the yeast sit in here and do its thing. And we're going to go over and get the flour in the mixer. It's really hard to show you guys the mixer over here because I don't have a lot of counter space. So okay, so I'm going to do 4.5 cups to start with. This recipe takes anywhere from, I don't know, 5 to 6 cups. I'll show you at the end why I don't have an exact measurement. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe there's just too much moisture in the air and I need more flour to get it to form a nice smooth ball. And then sometimes it's super dry outside and so I don't need as much flour. I don't know if that is the actual case, but that's what I think, I guess. Okay, so I've got 3 cups in here right now. Okay, so there's these little balls. You can't really see them. That's what I don't like dealing with in my bread. Alright, so I'm going to add another 1.5 cups to bring it up to 4.5 cups. Alright, there's my 4.5 cups. Now to this, I'm going to add in my milk that has a yeast, and I'm going to add the water in. So the water, there's 1.5 cups of warm water that we already talked about. So I'm going to put all those in, and then we're going to go ahead and start the process of mixing all the ingredients together. So I forgot to add in my salt. This is why I lay all my ingredients out before I start the process, because I have been known to forget. So I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. Alright, there we go. Alright, I also wanted to just make a quick point here. It's important to me that my yeast and my water is starting to foam or bubble before I put it into my flour mixture. So if you can see, you can start to see how it's starting to bubble. That's what I'm looking for. That tells me that my yeast is alive and active, and that is one of the main things you need for a good bread. So let's go ahead and pour this into the mixture here. So as you can see, there's still a little bit of yeast mixture in there. I'm going to pour some water in here to get that out. I mean the milk. So here is my milk. Oh, it's hard to do this. All right. So I'm going to put my meter on. Bring this down. And I'm going to stir this for like a minute and a half. I just want to get it incorporated. I'm going to do it on low, and then I'm going to switch it over to the number 2 setting and do it for a couple more minutes until it starts to pull together, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to let this mix for about a minute, and then I'm going to go ahead and start adding in the rest of the flour until it forms a soft ball. And I'll bring you up here so you can kind of watch with me. See how it's starting to kind of form a ball in there? So right there is 5 cups. So see how it's kind of sticking to the sides in there? Can you see that? Like, we want it to kind of be clean from the sides. There. Alright, I'm going to stop this. Oh, it's still really sticky, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and add another half a cup, and then we're going to continue to stir it. So this is 5.5, or no, 4.5, 5. Yes, 5.5 cups that we're doing now. Remember, turn it on slowly, and then go up to the next level. And you know, I realized that I had told you to start it on the number 1 setting. Whoops. Turn it on the number 1 setting and then the 2 before. And I was saying to put it on the number 1 for about a minute. I didn't do that. I just put it straight up to 2 after that initial turn on. Take the dough and get it off of here. See, it's still really sticky. I don't want it to be sticky. But it's starting to come around. So we're going to put it back down, lock it into place, and continue again. So you see how my sides are starting to come clean? To me, that's an indicator that my bread or the dough is almost ready to go through its first rest. Feeling. Oh yeah, this is the way I want it to feel. See? That's what I want it to feel. And my finger is pretty much clean. There's a little first. I'm going to take the dough and put it in a glass bowl that's been oiled, and then I'm going to let it rise for an hour. So let's get that done. You guys hear my chickens out there? Something is upsetting them. Or they just laid some eggs and they're seeing their chickens. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of oil in here. And then I'm going to mix it around. I don't want my bread sticking, or I don't want the dough sticking to the sides at all. That is not good. Okay, so see, that bowl is pretty clean. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of put this, oh, where are you? I'm just going to kind of form this into a soft ball. This makes it easier for me to gauge how much it's rising. Okay, so there's my ball, my beautiful bread. Alright, I'm going to put it in my greased bowl, and I'm going to notate how big this dough ball is compared to my bread. I want it to be double this size. So it should fill up this entire bowl by the time it's done, or pretty near filling this up. Alright, so the next thing we need to do, I need to wet one of my hand towels or my kitchen towels and put it over the top. The reason I wet it with kind of, I wet it with warm water, wring it out really well, and then place it over the top of it. I do this so that the environment stays warm, and also so that the dough does not stick to my towel. Now for my towels, my wonderful neighbor bought me some towels, and it's not like a really fluffy towel. These are tight knits, which is really good for using for my bread. So let's go ahead and get this wet. Like I said, I'm going to use hot or really warm water. I'll take this. Put it over here. Now we're going to put it in the oven. I do not warm my oven. I just set it in there, close the door, and let it rise on its own. I'm going to set the timer for 1 hour. Now, I remember being a little girl and going over to my dad's house, and my mom, Eileen, let Trisha and I help with making bread, and those were my earliest memories of making bread. Anyways, I just remember those times. I remember she would give us each a portion of the dough, and my sister and I, we would sit there and make hearts and our names, and I think I made like a little doll or a teddy bear one time. I just remember it being happy and carefree, which I didn't really get a lot of in my childhood. So making bread, I always have those memories. So to me, making bread is a comfort all in its own. So thank you, Mom, for giving me these precious, beautiful memories. Actually, I'm just going to do it with my hands. Alright, so I put a little bit of oil in each of these bread pans. So I'm just going to mix it around. I'm going to use my fingers. I know they're clean. I remember one time I was at my dad's house. I spent like almost a whole year there. My brother and my sister and I spent a whole year there. And my mom, we had made some deviled eggs. And she told me, we were having a barbecue or something. And she told me, she was like, okay, Angie, take these out and go put them on the table outside. So I was like, okay. I was little. I was like, I don't know, 7 or, I don't know, maybe 7 years old. Anyway, so I grabbed this plate of these deviled eggs, and I went to move to go outside, and all of the eggs fell all over the floor. And I remember I was so upset and I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be so mad at me, and Dad's going to be so mad at me. And, well, no one was mad at me. Everybody, my stepmom, Eileen, she was laughing. Of course, I was like starting to cry because I thought I was going to get in trouble. And she's like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And she just says, well, I just cleaned the floors anyway, so we'll just pick everything up and we'll put it back on the plate and we won't tell Daddy about it. So my sister and I were like, oh my gosh, this is so silly. So we went ahead and cleaned up all the Eggos or not the Eggos, we cleaned up the deviled eggs and served them for dinner. And I remember all through dinner I was giggling and my dad's like, what are you guys doing? And I couldn't hold it anymore because I can't lie for the life of me. Can't hold secrets. Anyway, so I finally like busted up laughing and I told my dad what had happened, and he was like, well, a little bit of dust or whatever won't hurt anybody, and he popped it in his mouth and just kept on eating. And I was like, oh my goodness. Anyways, that was my story. Alright, so I'm gonna finish doing up these dishes and I'll be back here in a YouTube second to show you the dough and how it's rising, and then we'll move on. Okay, so the hour is up. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and take the dough out. We'll check to see how it's rising and go from there. Oh yeah, I can already tell it is good. I'll bring you up here like this. So there is the dough. It is covered the whole bowl. So now we're just going to punch this down real quick, and then we're going to transfer it over, cut it in half, and put it into my bread containers, okay? Alright, set. Alright, let's see if we can set you up. Actually, here. There we go. I already floured the surface. Alright, so here is 1/2, and oh, here, there. So there's my 2 halves. I'm going to set one in the back. Now, my husband said that he doesn't like this bread once it gets cold because it feels too dense for him. He likes it more airy. So I'm going to do this bread in 2 different ways. I'm going to roll one out like what I was taught, and then I'm going to stretch the other one. So I want to roll this out to 9 inches by 14 inches, okay? So I use my measuring ruler. I do it all the time. I'm not a good math person, so I use a measuring ruler. So the first thing I do is I just kind of shape it, okay? And then I'm going to get my hands a little floury, put a little bit over the top. I'm just lightly dusting. I'm going to grab my rolling pin. Now you don't want to over roll your dough, okay? You over roll it and you're going to work it too much, and then it's going to be tough, and we do not want tough bread. So I try to keep it pretty uniform in shape so that when I roll it out, or when I roll it up, it's going to be uniform in shape on the ends, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Alright, so I'm at about 14 inches in length, and I am 8 inches, almost 9 inches actually. So I'm just going to kind of make this more rectangular. Alright, so there's my dough. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll it. And when you roll it, you want to do a tight roll. You don't want it to be a loose roll, okay? Alright, so we have it rolled. Now I'm going to show you. See how the top of this is not even, okay? And it's the same way on the other end. So I'm just going to kind of scoot this like this. There. Now I'm going to do the other side. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and put this back in my pan. Or I'm going to put it in my pan. Here, let me. Alright. I'm going to put it in there and kind of situate it to where it's in the middle. There. That's how they should look. Okay? Now I'm going to put this back in the oven and let it rise for another hour. But I'm missing one, so let's go get that one done. Okay, so this one, I am going to stretch it instead of rolling it. I'm going to get my hands floury. Well, yeah, I'm not going to use the rolling pin, okay? Try and get you to where you can see what I'm doing. So maybe this is more like a pizza. You know how they like work the dough and they just, instead of using a rolling pin, they just use the weight. All right. I think, yep, I am good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this one. All right, we're going to do the sides again. And you know something I forgot to tell you, you always want the seam down when you put it into the bread pan, okay? Because as it's rising, it's that roll is going to come undone. All right, so here are my two breads. I'm going to mark this one. I don't know how yet. Maybe I'll just try and remember that it's on the right hand side. Actually, I'll go back and look at this video if I have questions. So right hand side will be this bread. Rise one more time for another hour, and then we can cook it. Alright, so I need to clean up my mess over there, and then we will have bread here in okay, 30 minutes, so you guys can see it. Oh, beautiful. Yep, pretty good. You can hear it. Ooh, okay, so this is the one that I did not roll out. This is the one that I rolled out. So I don't know if you can hear the sound. Like this one sounds super dense to me. This one sounds more airy. So hopefully that actually works. I want it to be more airy. If it's more airy, then my husband will not think that it's so dense, right? Hopefully. So we'll give this an hour, let it cool, and then I'll do my wonderful taste test. I'm actually, let me see if I can get you down. There. There. way they work. Ah, ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, so we're gonna let those sit. So delicious, I can't wait. Okay, another hour. We're gonna let them sit. You don't want to cut into them right now. If that steam escapes, the bread is going to get dried out. And also we have a chance of the structures, the cells in there, the air pockets to collapse. And we don't want that to happen. So we're going to leave it alone. We're going to let it cool down. We're going to let the bread, that dough inside of there, let it just cool down and kind of stiffen up so that when we do cut into it, we're not cutting into the integrity of those cells that are inside that bread. We'll go over it once I cut into it. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so it's been an hour. My bread is nice and cool. So you can go ahead and touch it. It's not really hard anymore. This is ready for me to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and put it down here. Now remember, this is the one that I rolled out. Okay, so I'm going to cut this one first. I'll show you what the inside looks like, and then we'll do the one that I stretched instead of rolling, and we'll cut into that one and see if there's any difference between the two. I don't know if there's going to be a difference. Hopefully there is. So my husband likes the bread more. So I just use a serrated knife to go ahead and cut this. And I also cut them fairly thin because we use this to make our sandwiches and French toast and all that kind of stuff. And my family likes more of what you would see at a grocery store. So the very ends I cut really, really thin because nobody here likes the bud. So let me see if I can, there, I'll put that like this. So I'm cutting just the very tip of this off. So see how dense that is? You don't see a lot of air pockets in there. I mean, you see some, but not a lot. Like right here, you see some air pockets, but it's not a lot. And this is pretty dense bread for my husband. I like it this way. I like the chewy texture of it, but my husband likes more airy bread. Alright, so I'm just going to cut this up. Okay, so I do not seal the bag. I leave it open because it's still warm and I don't want it to get soggy. So I'm going to leave it out on the counter in the bag, probably for the rest of the afternoon until it really dries out, and then I'll go ahead and put one in the cupboard and one in the fridge. This one is for me. Actually, I'm going to use this to do a, alright, actually I'm going to look on this side first. So we're just going to cut the end off again. I actually don't notice any difference. Get those crumbles off of there. I don't notice any difference in how airy it would be. See there? And this one. So I'm not seeing any difference. Let's go ahead and finish cutting this up. Okay, there. So the one on the left, this one, is the one I rolled out, and the one on the right is the one that I stretched. So I don't really see a difference in either one. Which is totally fine.